Based on the novel by Stephen King and directed by Rob Reiner, starring James Caan, Kathy Bates, and Richard Farnsworth, the story follows Paul Sheldon, a professional writer. After finishing his most recent novel, he begins to drive home in order to publish it, but is caught in a freak blizzard and crashes his car. He's rescued by Annie Wilkes, a professional nurse who starts caring for him in her own home. She also happens to be his #1 fan. And on top of that is absolutely crazy. The reason I decided to watch Misery was because I am woefully behind on my Stephen King adaptation movies. You know, Stephen King has so many books, and there have been so many movies based on his so many books, and I have just not caught up with anywhere close to all of them. There's a lot of, I've seen some of the biggest ones, you know, Shawshank Redemption, Carrie, It, you know, I've seen some of the bigger ones, but in terms of his like whole catalog, which there's a lot of good versions of his stories out in film, I haven't seen most of them. The one thing I found really interesting about this movie is that it feels like an indie movie. It feels like a really small budget, you know, non-Hollywood kind of thing. But it's not. I mean, at the time in 1990, it was produced for $20 million. Today, that's around $40 million. And so it's just the fact that it has such a small scope and scale. The whole movie basically takes place in one farmhouse, and then in that farmhouse, we're really only seeing one room. We spend, I don't know, 60% of the movie in one room in this one house. So the movie just feels really small and really contained. The one thing that tipped me off that it wasn't a low-budget movie was that all of a sudden there was a helicopter flying around in one scene. And I was like, oh, well, this certainly isn't low budget now. Because the movie is so small in scope, you know, we're in the one place, we have few characters. It's really down to the actors' performances to sell the emotion of what we're supposed to be feeling and engaging with in the story. Because in suspense films like this, performances are everything. James Caan does a really good job as Paul Sheldon, this professional writer who gets in an accident and is basically held hostage by this crazy person. And the thing I love about his performance is that it is so understated. You know, he plays it really straight, really calm, and the sense of fear you get is more about just surprise. He really does a good job of being a lens for the audience into the situation. And so he doesn't have to act crazy. He just has to be genuinely like, what is happening? And he does a great job of how he acts and how he behaves in front of her versus when she's gone. You know, when she's there and she's in front of him, he's like, oh, thank you, you know, whatever. And then as soon as she leaves, it's like, I gotta get the hell out of here. Where am I gonna go? And like he starts freaking out and like trying to escape and stuff. And it really feels like a prison movie in a lot of scenes. And he does such a good job of getting that desperation across of his situation.
I know I'm only 40 pages into your book, but...
The profanity bothers you.
It has no nobility.
These are slum kids. I was a slum kid. Everybody talks like that.
They do not? What do you think I say when I go to the feed store in town? Oh, now, Wally, give me a bag of that effing pig feed and 10 pounds that bitchly cow corn. And in the bank, do I tell Mrs. Bollinger, oh, here's one big bastard of a check. Give me some of your Christing money. There, look there. See what you made me do?
Kathy Bates is so good in this movie. She is so terrifying. Like, she does such a good job in this movie playing this crazy person who is keeping this dude hostage and is just... She swings wildly from really nice and sweet and a little weird, but not in a dangerous way. Then she swings into being a force of nature that will absolutely destroy you like a hurricane, man. It is so terrifying, and we're all seeing this through the lens of this guy who, you know, she's not like a physically imposing woman at all, but we're seeing this woman through the lens of a guy whose legs and arm are broken. And so he's got like one arm. It's not even his dominant arm, I don't think. And so... and he's like trapped in this little room, and his mobility is almost zero. So he is at the complete whims of this crazy person. She's all over the map, and that bizarre uncertainty of her performance makes it so much more terrifying. Like, she's one of the scariest villains I've seen in a movie in a long time. and she's just this lady. Like, she's just this lady who's a little kind of weird and a little crazy and off kilter, but the situation around that character makes it really uncomfortable in so many scenarios, and it just works beautifully. Like, wow. Richard Farnsworth is our other main character in this movie, and he's this small town sheriff who's trying to solve the disappearance of Paul Sheldon, the famous author. And it's interesting in the movie because he just sort of lives in his own world, right? He's off in his sheriff's office, he's off in town, he's off like looking around the woods trying to find this guy, and he's just sort of doing his own thing the whole movie. He's what everybody would want their local small town sheriff to be like. He's exactly the guy you want for the job. And so he's just so funny. Like, every scene he's in, he's just low-key, super funny. And it helps balance the movie because, let's be real, the tension and the suspense involved with the main plot of the movie, of this guy being held, prisoner by this crazy lady in the middle of nowhere, that's a lot of tension. There's a lot of stress happening in that. And so I think they do a really good job of cutting off to this sheriff and the scenes he's in trying to solve the disappearance, and it's really funny. Like, you cut to him cracking jokes, having a good time, doing whatever, and it's like, oh, okay, all right, the real world exists. It's not all terrible. Like, there's regular people in the world still.
You're gonna write a new novel. Your greatest achievement ever. Misery's Return.
Misery's Return?
I know you didn't mean it when you killed her, and now you'll make it right. It'll be a book in my honor for saving your life and nursing you back to health. Oh, Paul, you're gonna make me the envy of the whole world.
You just expect me to whip something off, is that it?
I expect nothing less than your masterpiece.
In terms of technical stuff in the movie, there's nothing really flashy in this movie. There's not like any big crazy moves or really spectacular lighting moments, but that doesn't mean it's not good. It does a ton of small things consistently throughout the film, which helps support the tension and the unease. Things like filming from certain angles for certain characters. Things like using particular lenses for different characters and different perspectives in the movie. And, using lighting cues to set up drama or to mislead the audience and things like that. Just it's a consistent choices throughout the movie of a lot of small things add up to be a cohesive, really strong visual whole. Is it flashy? Is it going to get a lot of attention? No. But does it work? Heck yeah, it works. It works really well. My final rating for Misery is going to be an 8 out of 10. Overall, I really like this movie. There's a couple things that I think are a little weird that don't quite make sense. Kathy Bates is a nurse, and so it would make sense that she has the ability to care for this guy, and, she would have the expertise to do that. But why does she have a closet full of, like hospital-grade materials? Like, why does she have hypodermic needles and all this medication, different medications, different things like that? Like, she's in the middle of nowhere. What are the odds she'd ever need any of this stuff, ever? So that doesn't really make any sense. There's other times with the guy, Paul Sheldon, where he's doing things, and you're like, dude, if you just did this or you did this, you'd get out of this situation way easier, way quicker, way faster. You're making this way harder on yourself than you need to. Like, when characters' internal logic doesn't quite work in moments like that, it kind of detracts from the movie experience, unless they're playing it off as a joke, like in Cabin in the Woods or something. A contemporary movie that's very similar to this would be 10 Cloverfield Lane with John Goodman and Mary Elizabeth Winstead. If you saw 10 Cloverfield Lane and you liked that movie, I think you will really like Misery, because they're very similar in terms of their overall idea and their overall structure and the way the whole movie plays out in both of them. Is this going to be one of my favorite suspense or thriller movies of all time? No, it's not. I think the performance from Kathy Bates makes this one a really good watch. It's just such a good performance. It's like a really good movie to like ramp into Halloween time. Like, this is a good late September movie to sort of ease into watching some of the more hardcore horror movies. It's got a lot of great things going for it, but it just doesn't have that extra like oomph, It's missing that little bit of extra something that I want out of a suspense or a thriller movie. And so it's good. It's undeniably good. But I don't think it's great. Thank you guys so much for watching my review of Misery. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm a new channel trying to grow, so that'll help me out a ton. And until next time, later.